Caleb Hart had lived alone, on the edge of the plains for so long that silence felt like a second skin. His ranch sat where dry grass met red earth, far from town gossip and closer to memories he never spoke aloud. Late one evening, as the sun bled into the horizon and shadows stretched across the land, Caleb noticed something near Dry Creek that didn't belong to the dust and stones. A small figure lay motionless by the trail, half hidden by tall weeds. When he dismounted, he saw it was a girl, thin, bruised and barely conscious, her dark hair tangled with dirt and blood. Her eyes snapped open when he touched her shoulder. They were sharp, watchful, filled with fear learned too young. She tried to crawl away, whispering words he didn't understand. Caleb raised his hands and spoke softly, offering water. After a long moment she drank, her hands shaking. In broken English, she gave her name, Naya. She said nothing else. No village, no family, only silence wrapped around her like armor. The town would have turned her away. Caleb knew that. Apache blood made people uneasy, especially after years of raids, lies, and revenge stories passed like truth. But something in the girl's eyes stopped him from leaving her there. He lifted her onto his horse and took her home, ignoring the voice of caution that had kept him alive for decades. At the ranch, Naya moved like a frightened deer at first, flinching at every sound. Yet she worked without being asked, cleaning, feeding animals, learning the land as if she had always belonged to it. She spoke little, but she listened to everything. At night, Caleb sometimes heard her cry out in her sleep, words flowing fast in Apache, hands clutching a small silver pendant she wore beneath her clothes. No matter how gently he asked about it, she never explained. Strange things began to happen. Caleb noticed distant riders watching from hills, disappearing when approached. Once Naya warned him of a storm hours before it came, reading signs he had missed. She carried knowledge beyond her years and sorrow too deep for a child. One evening, as firelight danced across the walls, she finally spoke more than a sentence. "My mother said kindness can be dangerous," she whispered. "But sometimes it is the only place to hide." Caleb realized then that the girl hadn't just wandered into his life. She had run from something or someone, and by choosing to protect her, he had unknowingly stepped into a story written long before Dry Creek ever ran dry. The rumors reached Caleb Hart the way prairie fires did, slow at first. Then all at once, a trader passing through the ranch stopped longer than usual, his eyes lingering on Naya as she filled his canteen. When the man noticed the silver pendant at her neck, his expression changed. Later, when Naya had gone to the barn, the trader leaned closer and lowered his voice. He spoke of a fugitive Apache widow, accused of killing a U.S. Marshal years ago, a woman who vanished after a border massacre, leaving behind a child no one ever found. He described a widow's knot etched into silver, a mark rare and unmistakable. Caleb felt a chill as his gaze drifted toward the barn door. That night the story echoed in his mind. He watched Naya carefully, noticing how she scanned the horizon before dusk, how she avoided the main road, how she stiffened at the sound of hooves. The pieces he had ignored now began to fit together. Still he waited. He had learned long ago that truth forced too quickly only hardened into lies. The next evening, as the fire crackled low, Caleb finally spoke. He didn't accuse or demand. He simply asked where she had learned to survive the way she did. Naya froze. For a long moment she said nothing. Then her shoulders trembled. Tears slid silently down her cheeks as years of fear spilled out in broken phrases. Her mother's name was Ishala. She was not a killer, Naya insisted, but a protector who had stood between her people and men wearing badges but acting like thieves. Naya told him how soldiers had come to their village demanding land and obedience. When violence broke out, a marshal fell dead in the chaos. Ishala helped the women and children escape, but the blame was placed on her alone. Branded a murderer, she fled with Naya, chased from place to place. When bounty hunters closed in, Ishala made a terrible choice. She handed Naya to strangers on a trade road and told her to run, to never look back, to survive even if it meant forgetting her own name. Ishala promised she would follow. She never did. As Naya finished, she clutched the pendant like a lifeline. Caleb felt the weight of her story settle into the room. He understood then that the girl he had taken in was not just lost. She was hunted by a past that refused to stay buried. Outside, the wind howled across the plains, carrying whispers of danger closer to the ranch. And for the first time since Naya had arrived, Caleb realized that sheltering her would soon demand more than quiet kindness. The first sign of real danger came at dawn, when smoke rose from the far edge of Caleb's grazing land. 3 riders stood silhouetted against the pale morning sky, their horses restless, their rifles easy in their hands. Naya saw them before Caleb did. Her body tensed, eyes narrowing as recognition flashed across her face. "They won't stop," she said quietly. "They never do." Before Caleb could question her further, the riders turned and vanished, leaving only dust and dread behind. By noon, the bounty hunters arrived openly. Their leader, a hard-eyed man named Rourke, dismounted with the confidence of someone who believed the law bent to his will. He spoke politely at first, claiming he was searching for a dangerous girl, the daughter of a widow who had spilled federal blood. His smile never reached his eyes. When Caleb refused to hand Naya over, Rourke's tone shifted. He warned that harboring such blood carried consequences. That night, those consequences came wrapped in fire. Flames tore through the barn as gunshots cracked the darkness. Horses screamed and smoke choked the air. Caleb fought to free the animals while bullets tore into the wooden walls. Naya moved with terrifying calm, guiding him through the chaos, pulling him away seconds before the roof collapsed. By the time the fire died, the ranch was ruined, and the message was clear. There would be no peace as long as she remained. In the ashes, Naya finally revealed the full truth. Her mother had taught her more than survival. She had trained her to remember names, places, hidden paths, and proof. Evidence of the marshal's corruption existed, buried deep in Apache land, carved into stone and sealed in memory. Ishala had died protecting that truth, but she had made sure her daughter carried the map to it in her mind. Caleb made his choice without hesitation. He saddled the remaining horse, gathered what little they had left, and told Naya she was no longer running alone. They rode toward the desert, knowing Rourke would follow. Along the way, Naya's skills saved them again and again. She tracked water where none seemed possible, erased their trail, and faced danger with a courage forged by loss. As the sun set behind them, Naya admitted she had always believed she was cursed by her mother's past. Caleb answered that courage and loyalty were not curses, but inheritances. Behind them lay smoke and ruin. Ahead waited truth, blood, and the chance to end a hunt that had stolen a childhood and turned a rancher into a guardian willing to risk everything. The canyon revealed itself at dawn, hidden behind walls of stone that shifted color with the rising sun. Naya dismounted slowly, her eyes scanning markings etched into the rock, symbols her mother had taught her to recognize. Her hands trembled as she traced the carvings, not from fear, but from the weight of standing where Ishala had once stood. This was the place where truth had been buried, protected by silence and memory. Caleb watched as Naya knelt, brushing sand from a narrow crevice. Inside lay a wrapped bundle, untouched by time, holding papers, a broken badge, and a journal written in a careful, steady hand. Before they could leave, Rourke and his men appeared at the canyon mouth. Guns were drawn, voices sharp with certainty. Rourke sneered, claiming history belonged to whoever survived to tell it. But Naya stepped forward, holding the journal high. She spoke not as a frightened girl, but as the daughter of a woman who had died, refusing to surrender the truth. Her voice echoed against the stone as she named the corrupt officers, the stolen land, and the crimes hidden behind a dead marshal's badge. Apache elders emerged from the shadows, summoned by signals Naya had sent ahead. Among them was an aging federal judge who had long suspected corruption but lacked proof. Faced with witnesses, written confessions, and the journal of a woman wrongly hunted, Rourke's authority collapsed. His men lowered their weapons. Rourke was arrested, his lies finally stripped bare under the weight of truth. Days later, in a town that once whispered in fear, Naya stood openly beside Caleb. The charges against Ishala were erased, her name spoken with respect instead of suspicion. Though she could not return, her legacy was restored. Naya felt something lift from her chest, a grief that would never vanish, but no longer defined her. Caleb formally adopted her not in a courtroom, but in front of the land and people who mattered. He called her his daughter, and the word felt right in a way nothing else ever had. The rebuilt ranch became a place where Apache travelers were welcomed, where stories were shared instead of silenced. At night, as stars filled the sky, Naya no longer clutched her pendant in fear. She wore it proudly, a reminder of who she came from and what she survived. She was no longer a fugitive's daughter or a hunted child. She was home, grounded in truth, family, and a future no longer shaped by running, but by choosing where to stand.